So today, to support this conversation is Dr. PMAC. Patrick Makokoro. He is an author and someone in the field who is so passionate about, the causes that relieve human sufferings and the same issues that we all are fighting for, and who has his foot in so many places, advocating for many unjust issues and for the voices less heard to be heard. And so, welcome, Patrick. I know you. We've worked together for some time now, and I know you've written. You are an author as well, and you have written about your son's treatment in his school, in your book series, and you continue to advocate for this same cause. Every day. So, how do we bring this issue to the forefront of every other issue that we're facing as immigrants in this country? As I really truly believe that this unfair treatment of us that is being targeted towards our children needs to be addressed, so I really want to hear your thoughts in this. So welcome, Patrick. Here you go.
Thanks very much. And good evening, everyone. Just to start off, I start off by acknowledging, with respect, I'm calling in and dialing in from the traditional territories of the Lekwangan-speaking people, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, whose land and relationships continue to today, or colonially known as Victoria in BC. And so, again, I recognize the land not just as something that we normally do in meetings, but certainly as something. To your point, Amaka, about thinking about immigration and immigrants and how people have come into Canada from the four corners of the land. And so just want to acknowledge that as we start off, and thanks for that introduction as well. It's a broad topic, that's very, very at least in my view, loaded with emotion, because, there are so many tensions that exist. And perhaps even as we open up to have a conversation later, just, request that we hold space for each other. I request that we really treat each other with respect, particularly the opinions, the issues that are raised, because each person, each family has got unique set of experiences. And so I want us to sort of and encourage us to recognize those sets of experiences, to appreciate, to honor, and to respect those experiences. I think that's very, very, very important. And tonight, as I was even thinking about this conversation, Amaka, a couple of things. We're exploring how immigrant families particularly, navigate the childcare systems in Canada, right? And this journey, as you mentioned earlier on, involves, bridging cultures, perhaps understanding new systems. And importantly for me, I think even as I, coming off of mouthing my land acknowledgement, think about how to preserve identity. But importantly too, as you mentioned, one of the profound things, I think, is this notion, of being in Canada as Canadians, being very open and welcoming to those that are coming in. But this conversation also, in my view, Amaka, is very, very important, because just a couple of years ago, I think in 2020, and I would just need to brush up my research a bit, but in 2021, or the 2021-22 sort of StatsCan, so Statistics Canada report, say that nearly 25% of Canada's population is foreign-born, right? And so, yet the childcare systems were not designed with the cultural diversity as a priority. Imagine that, 25%. And so the projections that were set then by StatsCan was that by 2041, so which is what, my math is going to be off, maybe about 15 or 18 years from now, by 2041, 34% of Canada will be of people that have come in from other nations. And so when I saw your invitation, I was like, yes, let's have this conversation. Yes, let's talk about this, because it is very, very, very important, and it is very, very timely. And so 4 things that I'll say in response to your question. Number one, how do we frame how we look after our kids, or how our kids are supported within the childcare system in the context of the communication barriers that exist because of language, right? How do we understand language and communication styles? Number 2, how do we approach childcare? How do we approach child and youth care in particular through the lens of values, right? For example, there are some cultures around the world that value interdependence as opposed to independence. How do we do that? How do we approach child and youth care? And particularly, I guess, I say child and youth care because I also I'm an adjunct faculty at the local university here, and I speak a lot about child and youth care. But in the context of children, how do we ensure that children children are taught about the importance of collective approaches, right, as opposed to individual approaches. Number three, when it comes to the practical differences that immigrants have. For example, food restrictions, discipline approaches, family involvement, right? How do we have these conversations within the child and youth childcare space? And the last one is system complexity. The Canadian childcare involves multiple layers, regulations, philosophies, as well as social expectations. And so as parents, as immigrants, as newcomers, how do we unpack these issues when our child comes at home and they are not looking well, or our child comes home and they've got a big bruise on their forehead and the school, the daycare center never communicated anything with you, right? So how do we navigate all of these issues? So I'll pause there just to perhaps in fact, maybe to break the ice, Amaka, and if you allow, you did mention sort of the publication or the children's book series that I've been putting out there. Back in 2019, my son, who was 5 years old then, was racialized and bullied at school. Now, school never said anything until one day they phoned us and said, hey, you know what, your son is crying nonstop, come in and pick him up. Right? That was the message. Crying nonstop, come in and pick him up. I go there, what's going on, buddy? Well, yeah. And then, the long and short of it, recognized that there were two younger boys who were in classroom who were bullying him, kicking him, go back to Africa. Why are you here? Why are you eating our food? Et cetera, et cetera. And I looked at the principal, I said, huh? And you never thought you would call us and have this, and this has been happening consistently, right? And so immediately pulled our son out of that school.
Your son never mentioned anything to you, though?
No, not up until the day that we went to classroom, and I spoke with him. We got home. Why didn't you? Well, I was afraid that I would not make any friends. I would, all of the things that young children would be, if I tell my parents, then maybe I'm not going to come back to this school tomorrow. Now I'm going to make new friends. And, so all of these things that he was doing to protect himself, right? To protect what he thought were his friends, yet were people that were bullying him and racializing him. So I'll pause there. And I know in this meeting tonight, there are so many different sets of experiences, but perhaps instead of focusing on those different experiences, would open up the conversation with a question. And the question I would have to all of us who's listening, please, I don't know, Amaka, how you're guiding us in terms of, should we just unmute and speak? But the question is, what would an ideal culturally sensitive childcare center look like for you as a parent, as in maybe their aunts, their uncles here, or maybe their grandparents here, who are, immigrants or newcomers or have been in Canada for 30, 40, 50 years, but they've faced or have seen, issues happening to young children. May you share with us, what would an ideal culturally responsive childcare center look like?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and speak.
There's no right, there's no wrong answer. This is all learning for all of us, right? And so, please feel free. And if you want to use the chat, you can also type in something in the chat, and would love to learn from you what an ideal childcare or culturally responsive childcare center would look like in your view.
Yeah, and as we wait for someone to be bold enough to unmute themselves or text, put some text in the chat. Something just popped up. It says embracing diversity for sure. Okay. So a little bit about because I love that you talked about your son's experience in school. But I just also want to share real quick my son's experience as well. Back then, when he was about a year and a half. So my son, who is 26 today, back in Europe, usually when you come back, when you come to the Western countries, to for anything really, and you have to go to school to kind of get yourself ready for that environment. And so the college that I was attending at the point had a childcare program so I would put my son there, and so I would go there are a few things coming up, but I will read that in a minute. I will go get him after my classes. So one of the days I went to get my son, and he was sitting on a high chair, smeared with yogurt, and that's fine because that's what children do. That wasn't a big issue. But then what really concerned me was another, one of the educators walked up to me and said that they were having issues, communicating and interacting with my son because he doesn't speak English. my heart dropped, and so I started to think a lot of things, as a mom, an immigrant mom in a country that you barely don't have a family to back you up, because if you're back in Africa, in Nigeria, just like you mentioned, there are countries that are independent and there are ones that are interdependent. Those are high context cultures and others. I am coming from where we depend on people, but in Ireland I had nobody like that, no family, nothing to depend on. So he has to go to Childcare, and so that he wasn't speaking that language, English, was something that really hit home, right? Because myself and my husband, we made a conscious effort to speak our local language to my son, because he's going to live in an English speaking community. He's going to pick it up anyways, but we wanted him to start off with that. And so I was really troubled, and that was one of the reasons I came into this field in the first place, right? So I know that some of us here also are having such experiences, so I really want to hear again after I read out a few things that we have here. If you've had such experience as well, what does what does your experience look like in terms of your children's treatments in those childcare places? So,
yeah, that's an interesting, again, and this is 26 years ago, right? Yet as a mother, this still is right there, and you're narrating it as if it happened yesterday, right? And these are real experiences, traumatic experiences, and scars that as parents, as aunts, as uncles, we carry with us for the rest of our lives, right? And so these are things that never go away. And so how do we then navigate around them? And here you are now with the 20 years of experience within the sector, because this one incident that happened to your son transformed how you saw the childcare or the daycare or the early childhood development sector. So thank you so much for sharing that experience. I've been reading through the chats, but I know, Daisy, you've had your hand up. Please feel free to unmute yourself and share. Yeah.
Thank you. So I was going to share what I would like to see in a childcare program as an educator and a parent. So a programs that truly want to be inclusive by asking questions. And not pretending to be inclusive, and not trying to know the children, their families, their parents. What are your cultural values? Why is your child showing up in the space the way they're showing up? And not just, being politically correct on paper, but truly asking those questions with families. And you could do it any way they can, whether through the registration forms, through the tours, entrance interviews, whichever way is going to be easy. But, truly asking those questions like, how does your child show up, right? How is your child being raised? What's the language in your society? Because if I use my son went to Providence, which was for speech delays, right? And then I would also have educators saying, oh, he's having issues with his fine motor skills. But nobody ever asked me, does your child feed himself? Because as a Nigerian, we don't let our kids feed themselves quickly. Maybe then, I don't know about now, but we don't let our kids feed themselves early. So I remember the first childcare program I worked in, and I was seeing 12-month kids feeding themselves. I never did that with my kids. I fed my kids till they were about 4, because 1, you want them to eat really quickly, right? And 2, you want them to eat really well, right? But then you have rules saying children have to feed themselves only in programs, and so you find children not eating very well, and no one is asking those questions like, would you like us to feed your kids? How are you raising your kids? So for me, that ideal program would be a program that really asks those questions to really understand the children if we want to be truly inclusive.
I love that, and thank you so much for sharing that, Daisy. Right, so whether on the intake or when you sign up or you're doing the tour, I have these culturally sensitive questions being posed, right? So tell us a little bit more about your culture. Tell us a little bit more about your routine, your home routine with your daughter or with your son, right? What does that look like, and how do you see us applying or working with that routine at this particular school? Are there particular things that you think we should do, or do you think that we should, those kind of things? Or even ask, I think, Daisy, too, importantly, as a parent, would you be available to come to the center one of these weeks to just talk to us and train or even teach our teachers about your culture, right, and your approach to childcare, so that we again are able to learn from you? And so I see time and again that these questions are not asked of parents. Right, it's come in, fit into our system. We'll see you later when you come and pick up your child.
Yeah.
right? And which is sad. Amaka, I know there's so many comments that have gone through. I don't know how you want to attend to those.
I was going to read them out so that
Okay.
we hear that right away. So I think it was Casey that started. He said embracing diversity for sure, and then Gigi said first they have teachers from everywhere. And by that I'm thinking, from diverse cultures.
Yep.
Chika said inclusive curriculum and activities, and Ellie says one that understands that my child is different, but isn't treated differently because of it. That is very powerful. Orita said the teachers can observe children and family carefully and provide specific support and set an inclusive environment. Chika again says a learning environment where children's home languages, skin tones, traditions, and family structures are visible, are celebrated and integrated. Okay, and then Ellie says effort is made to include my child in activities. I had an experience here. All the children had their hair brushed, and because my child's hair was braided, was excluded. Just I don't know. This is really some of the things that troubles me.
Yeah.